One last point about education. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of students excelling in our schools who are not American citizens. Some are the children of undocumented workers who had nothing to do with the actions of their parents. They grew up as Americans and pledge allegiance to our flag, and yet they live every day with the threat of deportation. Others come here from abroad to study in our colleges and universities, but as soon as they obtain advanced degrees, we send them back home to compete against us. It makes no sense. Now, I strongly believe that we should take on, once and for all, the issue of illegal immigration. And I am prepared to work with Republicans and Democrats to protect our borders, enforce our laws, and address the millions of undocumented workers who are now living in the shadows.
And we're back here in the Queens Grapevine as we continue talking about immigration issues that are affecting our nation right now. And, you know, where do we go from here? The amount of people that are undocumented, and more importantly, the people who are trying to get a green card, the problems that it presents to the nation and to the economy. More importantly, we're going into this segment to talk a little bit about President Obama. When Mr. Obama ran for office, the promises that he made, especially to the Latino community, those trying to get documented, and more importantly, was that accomplished? And if it wasn't, why not? And now that we're facing an election, you know, what is his point of view? So we want to take this opportunity again, in behalf of the family of Grapevine, that we have a special guest, Mr. Nestor Diaz, who happens to be an attorney that also handles immigration matters. So what better person to present these type of questions, to get his point of view and to see what his thought process is on these things. Based on the promises that Mr. Obama made, what do you think, Will?
Well, Wallingford, as you all know, President Obama got elected with 60% of the Latino vote. Mm-hmm. And most of them, to my understanding, voted for him because he promised comprehensive immigration reform. As the immigration system we have is archaic, it's very convoluted, doesn't work. Everyone agrees there has to be reform. The problem is no one can seem to agree on
how to do it.
The last real extensive, President Reagan, 1986, he had something comprehensive. He had some sort of pardon.
Amnesty program.
Right. President Clinton, before he left office, he submitted something called the Life Act, where which expired by April 30, 2001, where stated more or less if you came here undocumented, illegally, I don't like to use that term, I'd rather use undocumented, then you have a immediate family member that could petition for you, let's say a spouse, a sibling, other immediate family member, then parent, or employer. Under certain circumstances, you could adjust your status to a resident and there's a path to citizenship. Okay. Again, that expired in April 30, 2001. Since then, there's been no way to, by and large, adjust the status of people that are here undocumented. And again, these are people that are part of the system or part of this country. They're here to stay one way or another. We have to figure out a way to deal with them. They're in all aspects of our society. Even we talked about 9/11. I was down 9/11, and a lot of the people that they had cleaning up things and are currently now sick as a result of were immigrants. So I'm not going to get into all that, but these are people that are involved in our lives one way to the other. So we have to find some way, some systematic way, some humane way
to deal with it.
To deal with the system. Okay. Now, President Bush in 6 years could not press comprehensive immigration reform. He supposedly tried, but in 6 years he had a Republican Congress, okay, full Republican House, and couldn't pass it. President Obama, he tried. I'll give him credit. He did try. It was in his agenda, and he tried to pass immigration reform, even where both houses were mostly majority Democrat, couldn't do it in a year. So one of the candidates, Republican candidates, submitted a proposal, Newt Gingrich. And again, I'm not using this as a political platform. I'm not saying endorse him or anything like that. But that he made a suggestion for 10 steps to what's called a legal nation. And there's something to consider. Again, he talks about this comprehensive immigration reform. He supports it. He says we need to do it. But there's all sorts of issues that take place. Again, here in the East Coast and the West Coast, pretty much most people are very supportive of immigration reform. You have a lot of states in middle America that are opposed to it. So you need something to bring them all together.
And we should continue the work of fixing our broken immigration system to secure our borders and enforce our laws and ensure that everyone who plays by the rules can contribute to our economy and enrich our nations.
Well, obviously, the border system has to be secured and should be secured. And as part of the United States, have a right to do so. You just can't let any and everyone in. In terms of the immigration matters coming in, I think it has changed a little bit because the people entering today is mostly Latino and Black, and that might have a little bit of some type of resentment from the public view, I think, and people just doesn't have the guts to say it, but that's what it is, because the immigration matters that happened before was not so convoluted and not so complex. So, where do we go from here with something like that?
Well, again, when you have a lot of tension about this immigration, because again, in tough economic times, especially when people are looking for scapegoats. So, of course, they look to blame a group. In Nazi Germany, they started blaming the Jews, right? Now here, they're blaming Hispanics. Geraldo Rivera did I'm not endorsing his book, he did an interesting book titled His Panic. I play the words Hispanic, but His Panic, saying that there's a panic because of they're using Hispanics as a scapegoat.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Everything that's wrong with this country is because of the immigrant, and that's not the source of all that. That it's a factor, like a multiple layered factor, like everything else.
As you point out, as Byron does point out in his article, this is a reasonable law, again, that's a wake-up call to the feds, telling them it is the feds' responsibility. It is the federal government's right and responsibility to secure our borders. This is a national security issue. And Jan Brewer did what she had to do to wake them up and tell them they need to start doing their job.
Well, we have a beautiful multicultural type of situation, a great mosaic that I constantly talk about, people from all different walk of life, from all race, as a melting pot. The real true American is the Indian, and we know what happened to them. Every single person that is in this nation today came from a different background, whether it be Irish, Jewish, Latino, whatever, and we have to come together and work as a team. Obviously, the United States is going through an economic situation just like Europe is or anyone is, and it's an effect, and everybody's pointing fingers and throwing stone at one another. We need to be a little bit more responsible and get the politicians to get their heads together and come up with a solution that would be good for each and every one of us, and to defend our nation, defend our borders, and work out situation. As Mr. Diaz mentioned about it, when we talk about the DREAM Act, you have people who came in here, brought their children when was 2 or 3 months old. What are you going to do, throw them out now? They know no other place but here. So we need to basically have some type of common ground and get to some type of reality.
Right, Wallingford, again, it's like they're saying, try to keep the educated here. Don't ship them out. Don't put them in a position they're going to compete with the United States of America. Again, it makes no sense. You build these people up, you train them and educate them, and then you want to send them out. It sends the wrong message. And we're, like they say, cutting your nose to spite your face. Okay? So it doesn't make any sense.
How large do you think is the undocumented population, let's say United States and also in New York? How large do you think it is?
I think, I can't even, I've heard all sorts of figures. But I think, if anything, the last census that took place, I think they're underrepresented, because a lot of these people are they're afraid to, when they have the census takers, they're afraid to be counted because they're skeptical
Of the information that they're giving out.
They're thinking that maybe they'll use it against them. Although the Census Bureau is saying we're not going to share this information with DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but people are thinking that they're being set up and they don't give their information. Most of the people, especially here in the city, we lost some representation because
We don't have a true
we were
number.
undercounted. So I think I think it's a lot more than they're saying in this country. The amount of undocumented immigrants.
But it's important to know also the immigrants have played a very virtual part of the society here. There are certain jobs that Americans will not do, or certain Americans won't do, that the immigrant will do, such as, working in a certain amount of restaurants, washing dishes, doing things like that, lawn jobs and stuff like that. These type of jobs, people are not going to do that. And they need to understand that there's a need for that. So maybe there's got to be some type of common ground of working something out.
Feet from here in the Senate chamber. The gallery was filled that day, and it's a scene that I won't ever forget. It was full of students. They were wearing graduation gowns and caps. They came from all over the United States, and they represented tens of thousands of other people who were watching every minute of the debate that Saturday morning, broadcast live on Univision and Telemundo. These young people were brought to the United States as children. They grew up in this country. As Bob Menendez has said so artfully on the floor, they went to school every day, put their hand over their heart, and pledged allegiance to the American flag, the only flag they've ever known. For many of them, English is their only language. They were not only graduates of schools, they became valedictorians, star athletes, honor roll students, ROTC leaders, and they can be our future doctors, soldiers, journalists, and even United States senators. They'll make America a better place. These students are hoping and praying that the United States Senate will find the courage to pass the DREAM Act, which we are introducing today. 55 senators, a bipartisan majority, voted for the DREAM Act that day in December, last December. A majority has voted for the DREAM Act every time we brought it to the floor. But unfortunately, it has always faced a Republican filibuster.
Mr. Diaz, I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the family of the Grapevine and our public or viewing audience out in the city. Thank you so much for imparting so much information to us.
Right, I wanted to say, I think this is going to be aired before the holidays. I want
Yes,
to
it will be.
wish everyone a happy holiday on behalf of myself and everyone enjoy it. Again, don't drink and drive. We talked about it in another episode. Otherwise, you're going to have to hire someone like myself. Okay, if you start drinking and everything else could drink and during the holiday, then get a cab to take you home. It's going to be much cheaper than hiring an attorney. Okay.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as you can see, as we're talking about these sensitive issues, you saw the phone number of Mr. Diaz's office and also his website. Feel free to use it to your convenience if you need any type of professional help. And again, this is Wallingford Lee saying good night for the Grapevine, and I hope this program has been to your liking and more importantly, educational to you. Good night.